right, guys. Today's episode of the For Reason podcast is brought to you by Disruptors Media Studio, which is based in Utah. I think it's Salt Lake, Utah, right?
Yeah, Salt Lake.
North Salt Lake, Utah. So they have this wonderful studio here. It's very nice, very professional. So you guys should check them out. And then also, Frank's Skeeter Sticks. This is a mosquito repellent. I love this stuff because it's all natural. I got a lot of health issues, as you guys know. I probably talked about on different episodes. And it's all natural. It has this, 4 simple ingredients: rosemary, peppermint, citronella, and lemongrass. I highly recommend checking them out. You can find them online at frankskeetersticks.com. That's frankskeetersticks.com. Or you can see them on Instagram also, and social media as Frank Skeeter Sticks also. And our main sponsor is Legacy Builders SoCal. It's Southern California's premier construction company. They do everything construction. So I'd recommend checking them out. Go to their website at legacybuilderssocal.com. And that's legacybuilderssocal.com. And they do everything. I've seen their homes. Not only do the homes, the cool thing that they do are renovations. I've seen them turn a basic pool into this amazing thing where there's actually walkway paths that go from the edge of the pool to the center of the pool, and bridges and all kinds of things. It's absolutely amazing. But check them out. They do a lot of construction in the LA, Orange County areas of Southern California, but I'm pretty sure they could do anywhere in California. Again, check them out at legacybuilderssocal.com. All right, good. All right, on with the show. So today's guest is, should I refer to you as Madam President or the the Oracle of Utah, or should I? Sorry.
All of the nicknames we got. Kenny's giving me a lot of nicknames.
Yeah. My favorite one is your only black friend. That's my favorite one. So yeah.
No, the other one. What? You got another one.
Madam President?
No.
Oh.
How you introduce me every single time I get on our study.
Oh yeah. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, my guest is the world famous Michelle Serna, and I refer to her as the Model Mayhem famous Michelle Serna, which is those of you who are, I guess, over the age of 30, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, over 30 would know Model Mayhem. It's this. It's a way that you could actually promote yourself. You know, it was Instagram before Instagram, right?
It really was for models. Like, it was kind of like a Craigslist or... But yeah, Instagram's a good one. Craigslist is a little sketch.
I was saying, yeah.
I take that back.
But the similarities with Craigslist is that you could see a model's portfolio or actor. It could be anything. Mm-hmm. And then you would someone could contact and negotiate rates or trade for pictures.
Yeah, and it was more than just models. It was also like photographers or directors or... I mean, you could just get like scouted there, which was crazy.
Oh, yeah. No, I used to do scouting on there. No, I'm serious.
I know. I feel like that's why it's a joke.
Oh, okay.
We were looking on there for something.
Yes.
Previously. And
oh, yeah.
I was like, let's see if Model Mayhem is still a thing. And you laughed at me. And I was like, I bet you we could find my profile from 15, 20 years ago.
Well, are you sure that's right? Didn't you introduce yourself to me as
the
queen? As like, hey, have you heard of Model Mayhem? Like when I asked you who you were, when I first met you, the very first time, didn't you say that? Like, no, I'm making that up.
I was like, Kenny.
Have you heard of Model Mayhem? Well,
I am on there. So if you want to.
It actually used to be called Michelle's Model Mayhem, but they changed it.
Yeah.
So how have you been? I've been in Utah now, by the way, guys, shooting from Utah. And I've been here for, by the way, this is strange for me. I'm used to having headphones on and hearing myself. Mm-hmm. And now it just seems like I'm in a room, which the headphones make it more intimate for some reason.
Yeah. I was kind of a little sad when we didn't have them because I was excited to just like get stuck in my space.
Yes.
But we're good. We're going to make it through.
And the hip hop side of you was like, you're like, oh, turn me up. Like you can't do that. I understand.
Well, I'm just hearing my own voice,
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes you hate it, sometimes you like it, but through these microphones, it's usually pretty nice.
Well, I hope so. Because I know there's a setting. I use this thing called the Roadcaster. I use a Roadcaster system, and they have a thing called Punch, which gives you the all voices, or whichever mic. I said all mics, to a like a bass, like a radio voice, like ladies and gentlemen. And I still listen to myself. I'm like, do I sound like that? So you might run into that when you hear yourself. You're like, oh, but you sound good. You sound good. I think we're our own worst critics.
Yeah.
So I've been in Salt Lake City, well, Heber, which is right outside. I've been in Utah for, I think 2 days now, or a day. I don't know. One day. And I've slept a lot.
Yeah.
Which I'll explain later. But this is a wonderful place. You moved out here.
I was born here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I moved to Vegas when I was 19.
Why? Why would a girl move to Vegas at 19?
I was following a boy, you know.
Oh, I thought you had like a dream. Like, you know what? I'm going to make it.
No, I was following a boy, just being a dumb 19-year-old.
That's not dumb.
Well, I don't know. I did learn a lot. I feel like I've lived a lot of lives is what I feel like I should say. A lot of people will say, Michelle, I feel like you've lived so many lives. But Vegas was a very big grow up. Not only that, but my beautiful child was conceived and born there. So, well, he was born here.
Are you talking about Frankie?
No.
No. Okay. All right. That's her dog.
Frankie's my dog. But no, Strider. So he's almost 13. But yeah, I had him there, and so if I wouldn't have went there, he wouldn't be here. So it was meant to be. But I don't know. 19 years old in Vegas. I just don't know if I would tell anyone else to go down there at that young.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I believe that if you're a good person, there's always something good that comes out of bad situations.
Yeah.
There's always something good.
That's very fair.
Yeah, because if you're not a good person, I've never thought of this side, but I'm saying this now off the top of my head. Hope this sounds crazy, but it's like the beginning of your end. Like it just goes like you'd be on crack, doing what God knows what in Vegas.
Yeah.
So, which I've seen happen, actually. I've
Oh, yeah.
I've known a few people go out there with a dream.
I've seen it time again. I lived there for 5 years, and I met a lot of great people. And honestly, I feel like I did surround myself with a very good group of people. And so I see a lot of them winning, but you also see the other side, and it's just so sad. Like they just get lost and.
Yeah. There's actually this adult film actress. Did you hear about that one that was discovered in Vegas? Living a certain way? Okay. I was being vague, and then I'll go into it. No, not that I'm into it, but it actually ended up in the news, like in, like a blur, because, you got like Donald Trump and Biden and all this crap, sorry, excuse my language there, all this stuff going on, so you don't pick this up. I don't even know the woman's name, but apparently she was a big-time actress and one of the top women on an adult website. I won't plug the website, but it's a website like YouTube. It's like YouTube, and it has like she was like the #1 performing artist on there, right? Then she just disappeared, and I mean, you never know in the entertainment industry how much money people make.
Yeah,
like some people don't make as much money. You thought they'd be rich, and vice versa.
Yeah,
but she was literally living. I'm sorry, a documentary crew went to Vegas to film. From England, a British documentary crew went to film a phenomenon that they found interesting, that people, I guess there's a sewer system under Las Vegas where people live. Mm-hmm. Someone on the crew recognized her and goes, hey, are you, I'm going to use a stereotypical name, like Savannah Canyon or whatever the names are, right? And she was like, yeah, but she looked homeless. He recognized her, and if you look at it, it looks like her, but just dirty and skinny and whatever. And apparently she just got caught up in that. She was living in Los Angeles, went to Vegas, older than 19, but I guess her vices caught up with her, the partying, and next thing you know, she's living in a sewer.
Wow.
And just trying to find the next way of getting high. Hopefully she got some help, because this was like maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the BBC, I think it might even been BBC filming this, like it's just a documentary. That's why it hit the news so hard.
Yeah.
Because they're like, man, this woman was at the top of her industry, and
living in the sewers down there. That would be so crazy.
Yeah. So you going at 19, which is, the brain doesn't finish developing until what, 25?
Yeah.
So you're going there with a half-baked brain.
Yeah,
and
literally.
And in love. That's I won't say in love, but just infatuation.
It was very big infatuation.
We'll call it limerence.
Okay.
Are you limerence?
Yeah.
No? Yeah?
Well.
Limerence.
I don't know. I feel like I have, but I don't know. Teach me.
Limerence is, and you could look this up online afterwards. But limerence is, it's a version of a trauma response, which I mean, what's it called? A trauma bond. It's a version of a trauma bond. So, but limerence, what happens is a person feels. It's like infatuation on steroids and rocket fuel, where you're like, I will do anything. What, you want to move to the backwoods of Idaho? Nothing wrong with backwoods of Idaho, or somewhere we
Yeah.
normally wouldn't live. And you have an irrational attachment to this person, and it defies all reasoning. It's called limerence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you should look it up. It's pretty interesting.
Crazy story about me even going down there, and this is why I say like I wasn't old enough to go there, is so I kind of told you I was going to name him something different. So I'm going to name him Steve. And we were actually broken up, and he drove up and met me. I was actually working for Texas Roadhouse. I was a corporate trainer for them. So I traveled around and opened stores for him. And I had been gone for 16 days, and I'd just gotten home, and he was on my doorstep at home. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he's like, let's go back to Vegas. I want to take you down for the weekend. I'll fly you home. But let's just go there without our parents. Cause our parents, like my parents didn't love him. I don't know. We weren't meant. So
They knew what they were looking at.
They knew. And I just, was 19 and just a cute girl. So I just,
The world was gumdrops and lollipops.
Yes.
So.
Give me some grace, So anyways, I drive down with him, and he was at a very big gym. He was a head coach there, and all I was waiting for really was to find a job down there. Like, I'd worked since I was 12. So I was like, I'm not going to move down here and not have a form of income and have to solely rely on him. So in a sense, I was thinking, but the owner came to me and said, hey, I have a job for you if you want to start. And I was like, when would I start? And they're like, Monday. And I was like, okay. So I don't even think I called my parents first. I called my job. My manager then at that time, he owned the place. He was like a managing partner. His name was John. And I was like, John, I'm moving to Vegas. And he's like, when? I said, right now. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't give you 2 weeks. And he said, you know what? If I were you, I'd tell you to go. Like, if I was you, I'd tell myself to go. So like, go down, no hard feelings. Like, I'm so happy for you, whatever. And so I, that weekend ended up being UFC 100, which was kind of wild. So this big gym was a part of UFC in a way. And so I ended up doing some really cool stuff for UFC 100. And I was like, this is exactly where I should be. And without even thinking, like, I wasn't even with him at this point, but I was just like, this is all happening for a reason. You get in your brain. And then I moved down, and it took me 2 weeks to go back and grab all my stuff in my car and come back down. So I just flew home, packed up my car, and then drove down. And then I lived there for 5 years. My parents were like, you're what? And I was like, I'm moving to Vegas.
Okay, let me get this straight. So you weren't together, but in the back of your mind, you're moving because it's going to help
Well, and I felt like we would get back together. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of just jumping straight in. Like, I had like a really hard childhood. Sorry, I don't even know I'm crying yet. My parents were great, but they were very dissociated. My dad worked so much, and I love my dad to death, but he had his things that he liked to do, and he would invite us to go 100%. We could go fishing, hunting, do all the things, golfing. Like, I did a lot of stuff with my dad, but not only that, but he was an overworker. So he just worked all the time. So then when he had his days off, he's like, I'm going hunting. If you guys want to go hunting with me, like, that's our bond, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, my mom had her own issues growing up, and I don't know how deep I should get, but she ended up losing us for 2 years, and getting back with her, she was trying to make up for that. But she always looked at me, and I know this today. She looked at me and she's like, she's strong, and I'm going to treat her like I was treated. And My mom was the oldest in her family, and she had to raise all of her siblings. And so she was like, I'm going to treat Michelle like that because I can tell she can like handle it, you know, but my brother couldn't. And so like my brother needed my mom and needed that extra. And this is in her head. Like he needs that. And so I feel like growing up, I was like, hey, I'm this A+ student. I'm this great person. And like my parents are just not there. They're worrying about my brother. My brother got into drugs when he was 13 or 16. I think it started young, like with weed, you know, the gateway drug is what everyone says it is.
I think it is. I think it is.
Really?
Except people who smoke weed. Yeah, no one's. I've worked in a prison as a peer counselor. Sorry to interrupt your story.
No, you're good.
But as a peer counselor, I did it for 2 years.
Yeah.
Voluntary. So, and a lot of them have drug problems.
Yeah.
And no one goes, yeah, you know, one day I was at a party, there was a meth, I just hit it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's usually, it's not a gateway for everyone, but it's because I think hardcore drugs is an incremental process of getting to the hardcore drugs.
Getting to there,
And
yeah.
it seems to all point back to weed.
Yeah.
Because they go, oh, getting high.
Yeah.
Then the next high, then the next one. But no, I don't think anyone goes straight.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that's actually very true. I feel like you start with that and then it's, I don't know, one way or the other. It's like psychedelics are hard, you know, like I feel like some people I hear, they're like, I like weed or mushrooms or Molly or something like that. But then it's like they went from weed. In my brother's case, he went to meth and heroin. And so, and at a very young age, I think the first time he did meth was 16. So I was 13 years old. I was just, you know, barely blossoming into a teenager.
Wait, where was this? Utah?
Yeah, here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I'm taking in Utah, and
Yeah.
it looks very Stepford Housewives or clean cut. Like it's crazy. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that. It looks very.
Yeah, underneath it all, I feel like
There's an underbelly.
there's an underbelly, you know?
Wow, I didn't know that. I mean, obviously it makes sense to have it, but
Yeah.
young kids, that sounds like something you'd hear in LA.
Yeah. I did grow up north, and I feel like back then, and I mean, I say back then, it's not super long ago, but 20 years ago, I feel like we were just barely getting cell phones. Everything wasn't as, like, I don't know the word, like developed over there. I feel like it was still, I don't really know how it.
Like you were still wearing Jinko jeans and people weren't wearing, and no one else was wearing it in the rest of the country.
Yeah, right. No. I know. You're like, whoa, where is the style gone? You know, but I don't know. It is kind of wild to me, but no, it's prevalent here, and not only that, but pills are very prevalent in Utah. Like,
That's interesting. Do you know what? The only thing I've noticed about Utah is when I there's not a lot of people here that look like me, so that's kind of different. And I know, and I'm just a regular guy, as you could tell. And I'm not even regular. I'm short, right, bald, you know. So I'm not like, I'm trying to think of that black dude that's playing James Bond. I don't know. Well, Denzel Washington in his prime, right? Let's say something like that. But I know it's like, I don't know if they're looking at me like, what are you doing here? Or maybe I don't fit in, or maybe like, hey, what's up with you? But I know like people stare at me.
yeah, it's very true. I mean, it's a lot less than it was. Like, I had parents straight to my face say, you're not a good example for my daughter. You can't hang out with her. And I looked at them at 12 years old, like, what do you mean? But I was brown. I mean, I'm not as brown, you know.
Because you don't play outside as much.
I wasn't in the Mormon church. I'm just... You know, and so I know what you're talking about. I mean, even my husband has gotten pulled over just for being brown, and they've asked him, like, whose car is this? And he's like, it's mine. And they're like, no, whose car is it? Who did you steal it from?
Okay, yeah, then. Yeah, see, I'm getting that energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's other energies too. Like, it's just.
I feel like it's getting a little bit more, and if you're from Ogden is very minority. I mean,
is it?
Yes.
Okay.
It has cleaned up a lot. I feel like if most people hear about Ogden and they haven't been there in the last decade, they'll be like, oh man, you're going to Ogden. I remember I went to 3 different high schools, but I grew up in Roy, and I went to Roy High, and then I moved to Ogden High. And because my dad lived up there, I moved with him when I was 16. And that can kind of go back to like my story of like why. But I moved up with my dad to Ogden, and the Roy kids were like, "Are you going to have to wear like a bulletproof vest to school?" And I looked at them, I'm like, "What?" But it had this weird persona of just being ghetto and crazy, which, I mean, the old Ogden Mall was so bad, but they tore it down, rebuilt stuff, and it is, I mean, they're doing...
Were there gangs here?
Yeah. Like Ogden
I don't mean to
was...
laugh. That's
no,
crazy.
I know, it's crazy, but yeah, Ogden was, it's very, it's pretty minority.
Okay.
So, I feel like it's kind of evening out. If you're on the East Bench, you're rich. If you're in the middle, well, now it's starting to get a lot better, but you were considered poor. Below Harrison, you were poor. Above Harrison, you were rich.
Okay, I had no idea. That's interesting. Obviously, I wouldn't know because I don't live here. But you know,
Yeah.
there's certain cities that are known. Like when I went to Chicago about a month ago, or I don't know, a few weeks ago, we knew like the South Side was rough. And then we got in the Uber and we said, "Hey, man, is the South Side is bad? Can we go?" He didn't want to like, let's just stick around downtown Chicago. I could take you there, but it's gonna be sad.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, I'm sure it's on a whole different level there, but for our crazy here, I mean, you got Stepford Wives, and then you have like our ghetto, you know?
yeah.
But
You got
yeah, I
Compton.
mean, I think so my junior year, I cheered at Ogden, and we have this game against a rivalry school, which I ended up going to my third year. But it's called Iron Horse. It's a huge game, and there was actually stabbings at the game. So
Oh, really?
like,
Okay,
they're
All
pretty...
right. They're legit, man. They got some street
Yeah,
cred out there.
they got some street cred. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was like, wow. But
So your brother, did he switch schools with you as you switched?
no, he stayed with my mom. So he was a big reason of my reason to be yearning for love, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when it comes to Steve, I feel like because I felt like my parents were so invested in my brother, I was like, where's my family? You know? So I met Steve, and he was hard. He was not a good person, and he would tell you that today. And I don't feel like I'm talking bad on him because he knows. Like, which is so weird that we're having this. We were going to have this conversation already, but I talked to him just recently, and he was like, I just want to thank you, you know, like for what you did and got out of the situation you were in, because I wasn't good. And if I didn't go on the path I'm at right now, then I would still be in that path. So like, he's like, because of you, not only is our child better and, you know, a better place, but you also got out and I was able to change, you know?
So he's better now?
He is getting better. Let's
Okay.
hope. He's on that path, which is really exciting. Speaking to him, I felt like he's been getting good help and everything. But yeah, so I had a huge argument with my mom. She had just made my brother, this is like my one thing I always go back on. This is how invested my mom was in my brother, and he barely could make it to school. But she used to make him these planners at Kinko's, and they were completely personalized. Every teacher, color coordinated. She'd get them binded, you know, like as a 4.0 student girl, I would be like, Mom, can you make me one? But it was never like that. Like she was just like, I need to get your brother on the straight and narrow. I need to like help him out. Like you got it. You got a 4.0. Like you're good. And so it kind of like was a backfire on me. Like it almost made me like resentful to her. I didn't see as a young kid what she was doing. Like you have the strength, like just go. But like, I feel like maybe if I really needed her, I could have asked for her. But I was so young, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to say like, Mom, like I actually need you. Instead, I freaked out on her and she freaked out on me. And then I was like, bye. And so I called my dad and I said, I'm moving with you. And we didn't talk for 3 months, which was wild. And my mom, other than losing us for 2 years because of other reasons, which that's her story, so I'll let her speak her truth. But she was our rock. She took me to dance every single day and picked me up if it was the last $20 in her account to put gas in the car. Like, she was the one at every single competition, no matter if she had work or not. She was, you know, like those type of things. But there was, as a kid, that shows you, like, you look at certain things, but you don't see the others, you know? And so, anyway, so I moved to my dad's, and then my dad worked 12s, and he was swing shift. So 3 days on, or 3 days nights, 3 days days, 3 days off. So he just, you know, some days was 2 days off, but he worked 12s, and then he had to sleep sometime, but he would just switch. Have you ever heard of that, like, swing shift, where it's like 3 day backs, 3 day fronts, 3 day off? Yeah. So he was just either sleeping or working, or, like I said, golfing or hunting or fishing or whatever, which I love him for, you know? And so I actually had met Steve that summer, and I was like, I don't know, I met his family, and his family was just so family oriented. They still are today. I love them. We're super close with them. And I yearned for that. I knew he was trash to me, 100%. But I wanted his family. And so, like, and also I feel like every girl, they want to change someone. They know this bad boy. I mean, he's, I'll just say it. He was a professional fighter. Like, you see that, you know, that thing, and you're like, oh, well, I could be that woman in his life. His family's so great. They do, like, dinners every single night together. They owned businesses, and they all worked together. And I just loved that. Like, they were a unit. And I wanted to be a part of that unit because I didn't have my own unit, you know? And so at 16, I found that, and I was like, I'm not letting this go. Like, this is my family, you know? So even at one point, he wasn't even living there. He was actually training out of a gym in California off of Pico and Flower, like right downtown. He literally lived in the gym. He was a coach there, and he trained. And he had given me a promise ring, and everyone was like shocked. Like, oh my gosh, like, he gave you a promise ring? And I thought, like, oh, I changed him. So then that, like, put another nail in the coffin. It was like, you know, like, you're
call
just,
it a nail. Yeah,
you know, you're like, I'm so invested. Like, he's invested in me. Yeah, like, I'm changing him. Because you want to change people. You're like, you want, like, I feel like as a girl, I don't know, as a guy, I'm not a guy, but if you start feeling like someone's changing because of you, it's like a drug.
Yeah, it's a confirmation too.
Yeah.
Like a false confirmation.
Yeah, and so then, this went on. He would literally take, his parents had owned a semi-trucking company. This was one of their companies that they owned, and he would hop in a semi and come drive through the night with this semi driver just to come see me, which I don't know if it was me. I don't know, but in my head, it was like he was coming to visit me, you know? But while he lived there, I loved his family so much, I literally kind of moved into their house. Like, not really. I didn't take all my stuff there, but I just would stay there. Yeah. Like, I would overstay. Yeah. You know, like, they loved me, and I don't feel like I was ever, like, stepping on toes, but I know that. And even when I got with, you know, my husband today, there would be times that we'd be at friends, and he's like, hey, it's time to go. And I'm like, no. Just because I could still feel that yearning of just wanting to be somewhere. I don't know what that is.
There's an energy there.
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm not ready to go because we're here, and I just want to, like, enjoy this, you know? But that was kind of how it was. And then I actually lived with his sister for a little bit, but it was just really wanting that love and family and connection. And I want to say my husband sent me something the other day, and it said, like, if you're there in person, but you're not emotionally, or, like, you're physically there, but I'm probably going to butcher this. As a parent, if you're physically there, but you're not emotionally there, or, like, actively there, like, your child's going to take that on. Like, they're going to notice this, and it's like, well, why they're here, but I'm not good enough for their attention, you know? And so I feel like that was almost my parents, or my mom at least, is like, I'm here, but you're not giving me attention. You're too busy with Anthony. You're too busy with your show at 8:00. like I needed help with math homework, and she was like, you waited until my show was gonna start. You know, this is when we had to like, we didn't have TiVo, so it was like you watched it or you're screwed, you know, or you're trying to figure out your VHS tape that you're gonna put it on, you know. And so
wait, can I ask you a question?
yeah,
During that time, I have so many questions, but I don't want you to lose the flow of your thought.
Yeah.
But just so I'll hold on to the others, but this one, when you were doing this, did you have someone in your life trying to talk you out of it? Like, hey, no, he's bad. You need to leave. Because I'm wondering, because I've been that person to a few different friends, and to answer your question, men do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why they always tell men you can't turn a garden tool into a housewife. You know that saying? Because guys are like, no, it's different. It's different. She said she loves me or whatever. And it's filling whatever void, emptiness they have in themselves. But did you have someone there? Because I noticed when I was adjacent or a friend to someone in your position and they don't listen. It's like, it reminds me, like it happened recently, and it reminds me of someone on drugs where you're like, hey, listen, you need to stop smoking crack. Your teeth are falling out and your kids are about to get taken away. I go, I know what you're saying totally makes sense, but I'm not ready. I'm going to go ahead and go full on in to the drugs. It seems like that. And on a side note, this is not a question. I think you did a good job being at 19 because there's grown women, just so you know, all ages, the full spectrum, that are still stuck there. I'm talking repeating that cycle. Does that make sense? So don't be too hard on yourself because 19, there's people that go in the military at 19 and have to fight for their life and defend the country.
Yeah.
And so in a way, you had to fight for your life. I mean, you're coming out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, hey, I'm trying to find happiness. And I totally get what you're saying about family. That's what drew me to my now ex-wife, is that she had a family and they had dinner at a regular time. I'm like, the simple things that kids take for granted. I'm like, man, you know, or it even, I used to low-key kind of get jealous when they talk about, hey, do you remember that one time when we had dinner? And I wasn't in their life at that time. And I'm like, man.
I wasn't a part of that?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so I feel what you're saying. But going back, was there someone in your life that are friends, girlfriends, like, girl,
I have
you
to
need to drop him?
I have to say, because I went to 3 high schools, it was very hard to get girlfriends at that age or keep them because, like, I lived 20 minutes away from the high school that I grew up in for, you know, almost my whole life, junior high and elementary. So we didn't actually stay friends. I didn't stay friends with the Roy people because it was like, I'm not driving 25 minutes with gas to get there.
And there was no...
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I made friends at these other schools, but they weren't like deep like that. But at the same time, he isolated me. Okay. Like he was that type. Like there was a time that he wouldn't allow me to go to a party with him, but he made me sit inside my car on his parents' driveway. And if I left, he was like, you're cheating on me. Whoa. I sat there for an hour and a half in the dead of winter. I literally left to go buy a blanket at Walmart down the street, and he was so upset. And I went back because I was so cold in my car. Like, when I hear people talk about, like, the dumb jock and the cheerleader, that was me. Like, to a T. I don't know what was in my brain, but it was like heroin or meth. And I still stayed with him, and I had a child with him. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty heavy. But I mean, I think to someone who hasn't experienced what you've went through or know someone that has, that sounds like I mean, they're probably in their head going, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't think it's stupid. And I've had this conversation with my sister because I believe that my sister, you know, I don't want to repeat my life story, but she lived a similar life as I, which is similar to yours, you know, unreciprocated love, you know, rejection. You know, when you're sitting there and they're not helping you or they're helping the other person, that's rejection. It's like passive rejection, almost like passive aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're a kid, you can't internalize that crap. You don't know, you can't think like deep. You just feel it, and that it's missing. And you just, and as you get older, it just piles up of more and more of that type of treatment. But I would say that, and this is what I've told my sister because we've looked back on decisions she's made in relationships. You didn't have a life coach.
Yeah.
You didn't have an adult there going, hey, Michelle, a man doesn't treat a woman like that. Or a dad who goes, you know what? I'm stepping in. I forbid you. You know, like how
Yeah.
some does. If you're free to do those things,
Yeah.
you know.
So I feel like he did isolate me, and the one person that could see all this, because as much as my mom was a hard subject for me, I still would go to her with my hard things. But because I only went with her to her for my hard things, like she despised him, and sometimes I would resent her because I almost wanted to just tell her, I don't want your advice. I don't want you to tell me how shitty he is because I know he is.
That's okay. It's okay.
Like, I know he is, Mom, but don't tell me, because then it almost makes me want to flip and then talk good. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm telling you he's bad, but now you're going to talk bad about him? Like, now I'm going to defend him. Is that so
No,
twisted and backwards? Yes.
Yes, it is. It is too. It is. But did I ever talk to you about that? Like when I was helping a mutual friend of ours go through a breakup, that happened a lot because we were friends for almost a decade.
Yeah.
That happened. I'm talking, yelled at me, and even said, this person even said, I gotta keep them nameless. I don't want anyone having hurt feelings or whatever. But this woman, we'll call
Sarah. I don't
Sarah.
know. That's the first one that came to my
All
head.
right, no, there's
Is
an
that
S
good?
name, but there's an S name that I could say that no one would know, but she would know it's her. But I'm not even going to say that.
Okay.
No, there's a secret name that she likes, but I'm not even going to say it. We'll go Sarah.
Okay.
But Sarah, like one time I was sitting with Sarah and her husband, and they were just talking. We were actually in the process of exploring the idea of opening a business together, and I was like, I don't know, because the husband already knew he had a bad temper. So finally I said, listen, Sarah kept pushing for me. I'm trying not to say their name. That's why I'm pausing. I'm like fighting it. So Sarah and I had a meeting, and there's a lot of times we were alone. So I said, listen, Sarah, why would you want me to go I can't be in the business with this person, because if they act like that in the business relationship, we're going to have some serious problems. Now, as someone, or if it's just a friendship, I can walk away. I could be gone for a month. I cannot hang out with you guys, which I would do from time to time. But in a business relationship, I can't, and this and that. And they're like, well, why? And you got to think, Sarah had told me all the bad things, like how your mother received. And I go, so I just started saying, this, and this. And I saying all the security cameras in here, it's like Fort Knox, You walk out, your phone rings. Where are you? How come you don't have a dog with you? It's just super. You know what it reminds me of? It wasn't set. I don't know what the back end of the cameras look like, but I imagine, and this is an exaggeration, in the casinos where the guys are trying to catch cheaters, right? They got cameras like,
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no. And this person turned on me, goes, you know what? And like chewed me out, cussed at me, and said that, we'll cut you out and put someone else in that place. And I go, do you know what? In your place. And I was like, then do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, but so it's not crazy to me because I understand it. I believe I'm a YouTube trained therapist. All right. So it's YouTube and a little bit of TikTok. So that's my minor TikTok. I have a minor TikTok. That's a trauma bond. Yeah. That is a telltale trauma bond. It sounds like a trauma bond to a narcissist, and a narcissist, they're mean, they're possessive. They don't empathize. They're not going, oh, Michelle, go in my family's house or whatever and be warm. Mm-hmm. They don't care. You're like a ornament in their life.
Yeah.
You have no feelings. Who cares? You just need to do what you're told and under my control. But yeah, so it's hard. And then someone who's trauma bonded, I think, do you know how that trauma bond works? What makes it more attached?
I think I feel like with him is he would be really, really awful to me, but then he'd do something nice, like a little bit, and I would just hang on to that. I'm like, oh, well, he did this, and I was like, the ring, but he cheated on me. So but he gave me a ring, and I'm like, oh, but look, I got a promise ring.
You're like Frodo in the ring. You're like, oh, this is it.
Like no one else got this.
Yeah.
His ex-girlfriend really, really wanted one. But I got it.
Yeah, you're like, who's winning now?
Yeah,
huh?
I know. She's like, well,
yeah, well,
joke's on you.
Yeah, well, from what I understand, it's called love bombing at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Everything seems amazing, surreal, but it's only a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And then someone who has who's susceptible to that trauma bond is usually empaths. Someone who like you, who's a helper. Like you've helped me beyond measure, right? And you just helped me. Like you just did things I didn't even ask for. People like you, and I consider myself an empath, I think. I am.
Yeah. No, you definitely are.
That you help, but we're susceptible. That's our Achilles heel, that we're weak to narcissists. And if we're healthy, if we were raised right with a structure, it's no problem. But when we're not, so a narcissist will love bomb, get us hooked in, they'll realize it. And actually, just so you know, when you're talking about your life, you might have talked to them like, man, I love this. My family doesn't need dinner together. They're taking notes. It's ammo. Have you ever heard that before?
No.
Yeah, they do that. They're not literally writing, but in their head, they
Yeah.
know. And in all the like they know what your weaknesses are, and they're using that. It's almost like a pimp. They're using it to later on to capitalize on you. So they already know you're insecure. They know that you need family real bad. They'll know because when they feel you start breaking away, they'll do something nice or love. It's called. And it depends on the magnitude. So if you really were serious about leaving, they'll try hard to get you back. But if they know you're just kind of veering off, they'll throw a little carrot there. So it's called breadcrumbing to get you to come back. But they'll do the absolute minimum to get you in, lock you back in, then treat you like crap again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to us, we're like, oh, even when the love bombing, feel like, oh, they've changed. He bought me a ring to make up for this. He's changed. He's turned the corner, and now it's happily ever after. And then it's just very confusing. So I'm guessing when you got out of that relationship, it warped you, right? Like in your head, like you had to, because normally people like that come out of those type of relationships, you almost lose a sense of who you are because you get lost in the other person.
Oh, 100%. I feel like I was a very extrovert, outgoing person before him, and he turned me into a super big introvert. I mean, I went to parties and stared at corners of a wall because he was like, I'm staring at a guy. I walked down a mall and he's like, you just looked at him. And I'm like, I'm just going to stare at the ground. He actually brought that up the other day. He's like, I can't believe I did that to you. And I was like, wow, after 13 years. I mean, I don't even think Strider was here yet. I was like, I can't believe that you're realizing that. Like, thank you, And so, honestly, I feel like if I didn't have Strider and the life I went through growing up, I don't know where I would be. Strider was my saving grace. I feel like God was looking out for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that time, I literally thought I was sterile. Like, I didn't think that I could have kids. I don't know why. I just felt like it. We were never safe. I had done a form of birth control like really early on, and it like really messed me up. And so I just thought like, oh, well, I probably just can't have kids. And so like getting pregnant with him, I looked at the doctor and I was like, you're lying. Like, you need to do a different form of test because there's no way I'm pregnant. She's like, you're pregnant. And so I feel like he was my ground, and he is the reason I left. And even Steve brought this up the other day, and he's like, I'm so thankful that you said these words because I'm looking back on them now and I'm realizing like you saved how our son grew up. But I told him, I was like, I will never argue in front of him. Like, I won't give that trauma to this baby. Like, he's innocent. Yeah. And I don't want him to ever grow up thinking that his mom is unhappy. I watched my mom's life, and she left my dad when I was 1, so I didn't get to see that part. But her just trying to figure out her life past that was really, really hard for her. But part of it was because of my dad in the beginning, and then they became best friends. So I don't really remember that beginning, but she would tell me about it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that was hard for me because that person would listen to my mom talk bad about my dad, and I was like, don't talk bad about my dad. And I don't know if he was a crappy person. I wasn't there in person, but I would 100% take my dad's side, which is what I was doing with this other person. And so then I was mad at my mom again. But I always just told him, like, you will never do that in front of the kids. We will never argue, and he went down a really bad path when I got pregnant. Mm-hmm. I was 20 and he was 21, and he was like, I am still a kid. He's like, he's like, I'm going to enjoy my life until you have him. And then we'll, you know, like we have a life or whatever. And it just never stopped. So without telling his story, it just got really bad. And I finally looked at Strider and I was like, I feel like he's going to start realizing that I'm unhappy and that's not fair to him. So that's why I left. So I finally left him. Strider was 1 year old. He just turned 1. And I was single.
Why do you quote?
Well, because I dated someone and it was another toxic. It was right after. It was almost like I needed to get out of the relationship and I jumped into another. And so if I talk to anyone, I always tell them, I say, do not jump into another relationship. I know it'll be hard. And I was never, I mean, 16 years old and I'd been with him. Like, I'd never been alone, you know?
Yeah,
and so I was like, what am I?
Yeah.
And I'm in a different state. I have a child. His parents were mad at me at the time. Those were because they felt like they always wanted me to have better. Like they were like, our son's not good for you right now, but they thought I'd scare him like by leaving. So they almost like, you know, like, hey, you need to kick him out. But I told him, I was like, but this is it. Like, I can't do this again. This is a roller coaster. It's been like this since I was a junior in high school, you know, like it's literally been this roller coaster, but now a baby is involved. Like I'm not doing that to this child.
Yeah.
And so, they kind of like, it turned around like, wait, we can't lose you for him and we don't want to lose you. They felt like they were going to lose their only name given grandchild. Strider's their only grandchild with the Lopez last name. Beep. Yeah. And so I feel like they were like, then they got mad at me.
That's a common last name, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like then they got mad at me and I was like, I don't care what, you can't do anything to make me go back. But part of that was jumping into a relationship right out of the gates. And who do most people then go and they find I feel like people, I don't know how to say this right, but like you attract a certain type.
Yeah.
And I attracted another certain type.
Well, can I say one thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I went deep and I had to go through, as you know, I had to like go through a serious crisis to learn about myself.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I learned about that. It's not that like you're an attractive woman. You have an easier time dating than me. I actually have to work at it, right? I just can't walk into the gym and go, you. right? Right. So I can't go. I was looking at her husband. He's behind the cameras. But I just can't go in and pick like that. Like I'm in a car dealership. I have to work for it, right? That's a joke. But kind of serious. But the thing is, it's not that you're attracting that, which is true, but you're attracted to that. That's all you pay attention to. Because like you could probably pull from different personalities, but you still, that's the only thing that draws you. You know, people go, man, I don't know what it was. When I started talking to him, I got butterflies, and a lot of the times that's a trauma response.
Yeah.
You know, you should not, love at first sight. That's impossible. It was not impossible. It's uber rare. So they're usually getting drawn in by something that's triggering something in the back of their head. And a lot of times we confuse it as love or attraction, and it's not. Yeah. And a guy who's healthy for you has the opposite. You're like, John Doe's a good guy, but there's just something about him. Girl, he's a doctor. He loves you. You're like, but there's just something. I'm bored. Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, I've been.
No. I guess I am the one supposed to be talking, but I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Oh, no. I don't want to interrupt. No, there's a lot of things I want to say, but I didn't want to, because you're in a train of thought and I don't want to throw it off. Yeah.
But
of your thinking.
I guess finishing that is I dated this guy for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And I was like, oh, I'm getting back into that. And Strider's going to see not a good situation. So he was like my grounding tool this whole time. So I got out of that. And then I was technically single for 1.5 years. So 2 years after, and then I met Cameron. So, which is my amazing husband.
Yes, the opposite.
Oh, the extreme opposite. Yeah. In so many ways, but every good. He's amazing. He's sitting right here, so it's kind of hard to like without looking at him. But he had to deal with a lot, taking me on. And
I can imagine.
could never not be so thankful and grateful that we are still together 10 years later. And we're happy, and it's insane. But I had a lot to unpack for years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were times when I didn't know if he was going to stay, just because I would almost push those buttons. There was one time when I was like, why aren't you arguing with me? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you're not arguing with me. Like, you don't love me. And he's like, what do you mean I don't love you? There's no point to this argument. And I was like, but if you loved me, you would argue with me. Instead, you're just like,
Yeah.
just not. And I was so messed up. I thought that was okay, but no, it wasn't. Like, we shouldn't have argued. We should talk about the situation and be done, but instead I would go to an argument because I felt like that was passion. I was like, but you're not passionate about this. That's why you're not arguing. And I'm already a loud person. I'm probably talking way loud in here. So
No, there's a sound
bring
guy.
down my mic.
There's a sound guy going like, this
I know, this girl's going loud.
full power, Captain.
I
We need
know.
to shut it down.
So I'm already loud and passionate.
No,
So
yeah.
then he would just he was very calm and collected, and he would take our situations, and he knew, he grew up in a very healthy childhood. I mean, his parents were divorced and remarried. So it's not like he grew up in a non-broken home, which I think is another hard thing for me with Strider. Is that was the one thing I didn't want, was a broken home for him, because I grew up in a broken home, and I was like, I will do anything. I won't be like these. And that was in the back of my mind. I won't be like these, these people that just give up and call the D word as quick as they can. Like, oh, I wasn't married to Steve, but just to leave, I didn't want to throw the towel in too early, because I was like, I don't want a broken home. I'll do anything. But at one point I was like, this isn't worth just being able to say I'm not raising him in a broken home, I guess.
Yeah, you destroy yourself.
So whereas Cameron grew up in, his parents got divorced, got remarried, but they were a unit still. His mom is incredible. I'm incredibly blessed. I don't even know why that's making me sad. I'm a crier, everyone. I am a crier. But his mom is like another mom to me. I'll call her and ask her advice. She's very level-headed. His dad's the same way. His step-parents, my step-in-laws, we call them mom and dad as well, but they are very level-headed, and so him growing up, he's like, oh my gosh, I don't understand all of this. My family's a mess. We got drug addicts and people in prison and all sorts of stuff. And he was just like, wow, what did I walk into? But he's still here. Thank heavens. But yeah, so
he's a good man.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of men would not.
Someone so good would normally just be like, wow, she's a lot. I'm leaving.
Oh, no.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Wait, someone's so good. What do you mean?
Him as a human. He's like, I have a lot to offer to someone. I don't need to deal with this. I don't have issues my own. Does that make sense?
Yes. But I'm saying that, that shows how good of a person he is, though. It's unusual, because guys, especially, he's dealing with, a stepdad situation and all these other things. A lot of guys, even though they don't say anything in their head, some guys, I'm not saying all, they kind of think man, well, I'm not his dad, but I have to be good to him like I'm his dad. Some mothers are like, well, that's my kid. You can't discipline him. But when he goes to college, hey, are you going to, that's your son, right? There's all these weird variables there. And then if the mom's argumentative, that's there's I've been in his situation. I'm not as good as a man as him, because I was in a situation, well, at my age, which is 21.
Yeah.
But at my age.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I've realized if I run into someone at my age who's super far gone like that, I don't have the fortitude myself, the emotional and psychological fortitude to withstand it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm too beat up myself. I feel like there's that psychologist Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that thing he talks about rescuing people, how to look at it as a lifeguard?
Yeah.
Have you heard that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they're drowning and they start drowning you,
you
have to push them away.
Yeah.
And I had to do that.
It's putting the mask on yourself before you help your kids.
Yes.
You
Because he
know?
goes, well, in the lifeguard situation, you have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
If I hold on to you, we drowned.
Mm-hmm.
If I push you away, you drowned. It sounds selfish, but I have to look after me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the decision is you drowned. So you leave that broken person broken
Yeah.
and you walk away. Like, this is probably a few months ago. I started seeing a woman that was in her 40s and she just had so much baggage, had not dealt with it. And it, to me, I'm such in a Zen space in my life right now because the massive, ridiculous amounts of therapy and EMDR and all the stuff I've done, I could take a lot, but I can make a decision. When I see red flags, I'm like, you know what? I don't care how beautiful you are. I don't care how, these are things, I'm being transparent. I know it sounds shallow, but how financially stable you are and how much good times we have, if this is how dark you can go. And to me, I knew the last straw was when I took this woman to a very nice dinner, and then I took her to go see The Lion King, the play. Have you ever seen that play?
Mm-mm.
You got to take your son
I
to
bet
see
it's
that.
so good.
In the last 10 years, I've seen it 5 times.
Wow.
And I love plays, and I'm not into cartoons.
Yeah.
It's not like a cartoon.
Yeah.
But it goes along the same story. It's amazing. It will blow you away.
Oh, I bet.
And but I took her there, and true story. And I'm just gonna, for what it's worth. So I'm sitting there, and she was asking a question. I think it was to see a picture of what my son looks like. So I take my phone and I'm scrolling through my phone. And when you take pictures in your phone and you know where it's at, like date wise, like I know I had a picture back the time I went to the fair, and the fair was back. So I was doing that. I mean, so you're skipping quick. I'm doing that, and I go, that's what my son looks like. And she's like, oh. And I showed her a picture because my son's in a bad way right now, but when he was better. And she goes, oh, he looks just like you, blah, blah, blah. She goes, what about that woman that you were kissing on the cheek? And I go, what? And she goes,
Yeah.
there. Like she found it like that. And I was moving quick. And it was a picture of an ex-girlfriend from like 2011. And she was kissing me on the cheek. And I'm just like smiling, and she, it's like a joyful picture. And I go, oh, I said, I didn't mean to, for that to be there. I said,
and it was in 2011. So
yes, I said, it was over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And then, because this just happened a few months ago.
Yeah, you were only 11. So.
Yeah, and she was just sitting there. Kind of, yes, I was only 11. Yes. You're good at math.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like boiling over in the chair.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I left this over. We're at the Lion King. We arrived 30 minutes early. So the lights are on. There's no music playing. And she's like cooking right next to me, right? And I go, do you know what? I could tell it bothers you. Here, look. And I took it in my phone. I hit delete. Then I went to the thing and I delete and threw it away. I go, there you go.
Kenny.
Huh.
Don't do that.
No, I was just trying to make peace.
I know.
I was trying to make peace. I mean, she's cooking.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying to make peace. And never mind. There's a joke I was going to say about it. It's inappropriate. So the thing is, so she's sitting there and I go, and then she goes, I can't believe you had the audacity to have a picture of her. And remember, she and I are not a couple. We're just dating. Like we never say, hey, are we seeing each other exclusive or nothing? Yeah. And she starts, I can't believe you had the audacity, blah, 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 blah. And she's already snapped before just in life, or she's always looking to fight. And I remember I was sitting there like this, and people started like looking in their chairs, like, like in front of us looking. And she just full on chewed me out for at least 15 minutes, maybe 20. It's disrespectful. I mean, and she's your complexion. And so she's turning red, just going in on me. And I'm just sitting there, I already knew in the back of my head, we're done. Yeah. I can't. Yeah. I can't. I've been through too much in my life. Yeah. I've been stepped on too much. If I was younger, I would have the energy. But the fact you've got this far in life, and you have this much energy in you, boiled up like that. So my point is that I think it takes a very good person, man or woman, to be willing to take a risk, because for your husband, it's still a risk. It's a very big risk. Yeah. Like he's opening up his heart, handing it to you, not knowing if what's going on in there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And I was very fight or flight.
Yeah, that's even more
passionate. I mean, my Spanish roots was coming out all the time, and he's and he's taking on a child. So no, I mean, Strider would just turn 3 when we got together. In true Utah fashion, we got engaged 4 months later. So
That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
I just knew. I was like, he's the one.
He's the one. But you know what? Going back to when you were going through stuff too with your son, did you think this way? Because this is how I thought. I was. Imagine the horror. You were scared when you found out you're pregnant, right?
Oh yeah.
I was in high school, so it was even extra horrifying.
My goodness.
Yeah, I was like, my life's over.
Yeah.
I remember feeling numb, physically numb, right? And it's another story, but I didn't intentionally. I wasn't a reckless person, even though I was reckless with almost every aspect of my life. I wasn't with that because I didn't want to bring a kid in the world and experience what I experienced.
Yeah.
And so my son's biological mother, she stopped taking birth control and told me she was still on birth control because she knew like I was a dog. I'm not even gonna lie. I was just all over the freaking place. So she thought that would work, which it kind of did. But the problem is she was crazy, is crazy. She knows she is. She's self-admitted.
Yeah.
She's just some problems. She's apologized.
Yeah.
But the point is, when you're going through like when you're trying to figure out, like say that rebound, quote unquote relationship, is this how you thought? Because I'm wondering, because this is how I would think. I don't want to expose my child to this. I didn't even think about myself. It was them that made me make my decisions. Like, I don't want them seeing this, or I don't want them to be in a household with this. I didn't think about myself.
Yeah.
Because if it was just me, is that what you mean? Like, that was your anchor? Because if you didn't have him, you might have just stuck around.
No, that is 100%. I looked at Strider and I was like, I don't want him. Like, I almost felt like I could feel I feel like I said that a million times. I feel like he could feel my unhappiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was like barely 12 months. I mean, I hate when people use months. They're like, oh, my son's 44 months. You're like, what? How many years is that? But he was literally, and I could just, I mean, not only that, but he did have some like blowout situations with him in the room. And I was like, that's just not going to happen. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I brought this part up of my childhood, which I feel like to other people could maybe put more into why I was the way I was. But when my mom did lose us, we went to my dad. And my dad, like I said, was a very big workaholic. I mean, he worked as many overtime shifts as he could, even while he worked this crazy shift. But he was married. My first stepmom was psycho. She abused me. She was psycho. Like,
you said that though. Yeah,
no,
yeah.
like
the emphasis there.
Oh,
psycho. Your eyes almost started spinning.
So after I tell you this, I'm going to tell you why. Like, she's sociopath. I don't know what is going on, but she abused me every single day that I lived under her roof. And my dad had no clue. But it was in so many different ways. She physically abused me every day, but other mental, like psychological ways was I went to her I was in first grade. Okay. So I'm 6, learning how to shower.
15 years ago. We'll say 15 years ago.
Yeah, 15 years ago. I get in the shower and I got water on the floor. She ripped me out of that shower so fast and beat the shiz out of me.
Your dad allowed someone else to spank you?
He didn't know.
And you didn't know the tell, huh?
I didn't. The very first thing she ever told me was like, you are not your daddy's princess, I am. And I'm 6. Like, okay.
She needs her butt kicked.
Yeah. Like, your mom is a horrible person. This is why you don't live with her. Like, she was just like,
She's still alive?
I believe so. And so I'm going to get there. But let me tell you one more story, because this is wild. So one of my chores, I felt like Cinderella. I swear I used to sing that song all the time. But she would, she would, one of my chores was doing the bathroom. So she would, like, I had to do it top and bottom. It wasn't just like a 6-year-old first grader doing the bathroom. It was like scrubbing the floors and doing everything. And I did the mirror. That was usually my last step. And I left streaks on it. She came in and grabbed the bucket and literally threw it in the bathroom and said, do it over. And I looked at her and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was almost like, I am in hell right now. Like, why? And I mean, I feel like found God in a weird way. Like, you know that. Not like, I don't really want to get into all of that, but I would tell myself, like, why did God put me here? Like, what did I do wrong for me to have to live? Like, I would wake up to the point where I would know what kind of day we had the very first interaction I had with her. Like, she was mad in the morning. Oh, I knew she was going to be in the best mood when she got home from work, but I would have already been grounded. So, like, that sucks. If she was in the best mood in the morning, I knew at night when she got home from work and we got home from school, like, she was going to be the devil. And so I was like, what kind of night do I want to have? And at first grade, second grade, how are you supposed to, like, I don't know, figure that out? So not only did I, lose my mom, didn't talk to her for 2 years, literally didn't talk to her. And my dad had no clue. I was literally getting physically abused and mentally. And then go back to my mom, and my mom only had time for my brother,
Yeah.
And so, like,
do you look like your dad?
I feel like I'm a very good middle ground.
How about your brother? Does he look favorite?
So back before he did drugs, we literally look like twins.
Okay. No, because I was just wondering, like, maybe you reminded your mom of something. That's how I was.
No, I feel like if anything, I look like my features are my mom. Like my smile, my eye color. She's green eyes. She's blonde and very white, but she is. And then my dad's Hispanic and dark brown eyes. My brother probably, I would say, maybe looks more like my dad. I don't know. I feel like we're a very good mix.
This mix. Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like my mom is the type to help. Like, she helped her little brothers, like, a lot. Like, they lived in our houses. I feel like she is, like, a girl's guy, I feel like. Yeah. So, like, the women in her life, she wanted to be strong like her. Uh-huh. But the guys, she just would baby, Yeah,
yeah. There's
so, yeah. So anyway, so going into my adulthood, I was dealing with all of this trauma from a very young age. So, like, that already set me up. But then once I met Cameron and we went through, our marriage, he really helped me unpack stuff. So
I'm surprised you didn't just, like, self-medicate yourself to just your kid.
Yeah.
Your son.
So not only that, but my whole family are addicts, and I didn't ever want something to control me. So I was so scared. I mean, I'll take ibuprofen like it's Skittles, but anything else, like, you put me on an antidepressant, like, I will not take it. Like, I don't know.
Okay. No, that makes sense because I grew up the latter half around drugs in the bad area, but then and then I was in an environment where I saw drug addicts. Mm-hmm. And when you see them at their lowest, it's a deterrent.
Yeah.
You're like, I know where this goes.
Yeah.
I'm going to be out there with no teeth, warming up my hands with a garbage can, so the mind goes there.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to try EMDR?
No, I know.
We got to set that up.
We got to
set that up.
We do.
Yeah. No, I'm going to just start harassing you with it because I'm telling you, it's surgical. It works. It absolutely works.
No, I know. And I need to. I think it's my relief. Mom, wasn't that the same thing that, like, my mom did? EMDR. I'm pretty sure they had to do it. My brother and her did it or something at some point. I don't know if it was that exact thing, but I've been wanting to do it because I do feel bad, the feelings. Like, my mom will call me and I'll instantly be upset. Yeah. Like, why am I even upset with her? She didn't even do anything. Yeah. Like, and I'll be mad at myself. Like, I'll get off the phone and I'm like, why did I give her attitude?
Yeah.
And there is no reason. I'm 34 years old and I'm happy. I'm literally in the best place I could ever be in my life. Very successful job. My son is a very good kid. My husband's incredible. I have good people that surround me, great friends, great, family, but I still can't get over those small things from so far away, but they're not small.
They're not small. Don't say that. They're not small. They're big.
But I just want to push them down and say they're small because, like, why does it still have a hold over me?
It will release. I won't make this podcast about EMDR. I talk about it a lot, but it will release it in a session. I'm telling you, but it's per event, just so you know. But have you ever read I probably have asked you this before. The story of Joseph in the Bible, the Old Testament. Joseph, have you read him?
Yeah.
you know, it kind of reminds me of your life. You know, you notice that he went through, his family was horrible. They ended up selling him into slavery.
Yeah.
And then he went to just bad things after bad things after
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
things
yeah,
after bad
yeah.
things. Then it turned good, and it turned around, and he.
It was like until he was 100 though.
No, was it?
Like when God came down and told him if, like, he'll finally have Sarah have a baby.
No.
Right?
No,
I
that's
don't
someone
think-
else.
Who was that?
I don't know. Oh, Sarah and Abraham.
Oh, Abraham. Okay, Joseph. We just learned. We were talking about him just recently. Yeah, I remember. Okay.
Yeah, he's. The
I'm
one,
very new to
he
the
went,
Bible.
Yeah,
I'm learning.
no. He's the one. He's the one. I think it's Abraham. But
Yeah,
so-
it was Abraham
yeah.
and Sarah.
So
Okay.
Joseph is the one. He went to prison, this and that.
Yeah,
And he
okay.
couldn't get a break in life. And top of that, he was abused and in prison, all these other different things. Then suddenly, boom, he everything was in his favor, and it ended up to the point where the people that broke him
Mm-hmm.
had to come to him for help, and they were ashamed, they were scared, and he's like, "Hey, what you meant for evil, God has meant for good." Like he forgave them and
Mm-hmm.
still helped his family, and still had that family bond even throughout the the trauma or things
Yeah.
like that. But when you look back of all the things that you've been through, even the things that you haven't even talked about, like maybe everyone has these really, really painful things, maybe things you only have told your husband, or you haven't even told anyone, right?
Yeah.
The things that's buried in there. When you look at just the whole picture of everything, and you see your life now, how you have the family you always wanted, in the not just in husband, wife, child, but even in the I don't want to say in-laws. What's that called? Is that
Yeah, my extended
family? Yeah, you have that. You have reasonable, level-headed, nice people. What do you think about that? Does like that whole transition like that? Why do you think? Do you think there was a reason or a purpose for you to go through so much?
God, that is. That's a very good question. I don't even know how to answer that. Like, I don't know why I went through everything I went through. Like, but I know it's not, and it's hard to even talk about it because you're like, I didn't have cancer. I didn't, like there's always harder things out there. So I feel like my personality, I'm just like, I went through that and now I'm here and I'm just thankful. I don't even feel like I unpack a lot of that to the point of like understanding,
Of analyzing it like that.
analyzing it like
Yeah.
that. But I feel like it could help me even still if I did.
Yeah. But it's scary to unpack too.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure you have memories that are like almost like a ball of electricity. Like if I go and pull that off the shelf, I probably won't be able to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Have you? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, 100%.
Yeah. I had to face
like,
the same things.
I'm going to have to go watch a whole series of Netflix or something. just
Bridgerton
to
or something. Or
put
something.
myself in a different,
Yeah.
person scenario. And that's what I would do. I would crawl in a hole if I started getting, too much, almost like anxiety. It was my anxiety, response was going to find a series. And he always knew. I would literally watch episode after episode, and because I would
Escape into that world.
escape into that world, and
Yeah.
he'd be like, "Babe,
Well, that's good.
I
mean,
know.
tell
Yeah.
him this is better than escaping into a tub of ice
I
cream.
know, right? No, I'm just in Bridgerton right now."
Yeah, no, I mean the reason why I say it because I feel I empathize with this the what you're going through, and where you're at, because me, when I had all my stuff, had it packed down. Even when you and I first had that 4th of July talk, remember when I had a lot of crap below the surface. I was one personal question away from maybe like I can't talk about that or having anxiety. I lived in that world like eggshells. But my point is, one, I don't mean to keep repeating, but I would recommend treating it, because if you go to EMDR, you won't, that thing you do on Netflix or whatever,
Yeah.
Amazon Prime, whatever your thing is, it won't happen anymore. And they replace it. Like they give you these coping tools, but you won't even need them. Like I feel so free from the things that happen. Like I feel so free. And I understand the magnitude of it. Like when you were just saying, well, I didn't have cancer. I would argue that mental anguish is the worst type of anguish. People that have cancer, it's physically painful and there's a lot of emotional. psychological anguish, like say the anguish we deal with, it causes physical pain. It causes the emotional pain, and it could be so unbearable that some people, sadly, they take their own life.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that makes people go, do you know what? I'm going to off myself. Most people with cancer, any kind of, I want to live.
Yeah.
I want to fight. Like, it'll make you lose your will to want to even live, even if you have kids.
Yeah.
Everything is just, it's so overwhelming. So to me, I believe that is something very serious. I understand what you're coming from. Like, well, I don't have cancer, because you're humble and you're kind of like, well, it's almost like, hey, there's people that are worse off than me. But I would argue that what you went through, it is a cancer. It's a psychological cancer that, attacks the most vulnerable. But also, because I know you're short on time, so I just want to share this one other thought that I had. From my whole spiritual rebirth and journey and stuff, I've come to the conclusion that, and remember, my conclusions are not like, this is what I believe till I die. If someone tells me something else, like, hey, no, don't eat seed oil. Oh, I've been eating seed. I thought canola oil was good. Like that kind of situation. So
Yeah.
until further notice, I believe that people like you and I believe that we exist in a world, which you're learning about, like through the Bible study. There's a spiritual world, and it's talked about throughout the Bible. It's actually talked about even in other religions. There's a spiritual world. They know that. Even science is starting to catch up with that. I don't know if you see Terrence Howard get interviewed on Joe Rogan's podcast. Okay, if you get a chance, see that. There's something that takes place, and I believe, like, say from a biblical standpoint, is that when someone has a lot of gifts and can do a lot of positive, I think that the devil or the enemy attacks that person at the very, very beginning. We have harder lives. If you notice, the most powerful preachers, the most successful athletes, a lot of them, oh man, I've been through, because we're willing. There's something about us that we have that ability, and I think that in the spiritual realm, the darkness of it tries to sabotage us or take us out early. Like with you could have easily, like, there's kids that break off of just getting bullied. You got bullied in your own home. You talk about, where do you go when the bully's in your house?
Yeah.
You can't go, oh, I'm going to dodge them at lunch. And no, they're at the dinner table with you. They're there when 24/7, summertime, and you survived that. And you survived Steve. A lot of women, I would say the odds of surviving that one without destroying yourself, especially at a young age, is very low. So I think you've overcome a lot. And I think if you ever sit back and kind of do a gratitude kind of thing, like kind of think like, you could actually do this in prayer. Like, say if one morning you just wake up. I started doing this probably the last few months. I wake up and I do a prayer of gratitude, like, God, thank you. And you start just in your head, just kind of flowing off of the stuff you're grateful for. I'm grateful for my healthy son. My son doesn't have any health issues. I have a wonderful husband. I have an amazing job. I get to meet people. I get to travel. I get to do, and all these things. And you'll realize that you've come a long way. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're just living life and you're being mom, you're being wife, you're being a business executive, you're just going. But if you ever get a chance to take a pause and look, you'll be surprised and pleased at what you've done with your life.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Truly means a lot.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean it too. That's sincere.
Yeah.
But you have a family get together. We don't ruin that. So have fun. I want to bring you back on though. We'll have to do it Zoom, or I'll come back to Utah to visit my nephew, and we'll do a part 2 to this, because I think we have a lot to talk about. But hopefully between now and then, EMDR, I'm going to find someone out here, and I'm just going to just harass you with it, like I started harassing you about, hey, go back to school.
I know.
Go back to school. Did you know? Yeah, so, okay. But thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right.